All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Friday Live. I'm Will Hookinga from AmericanRumReport.com, and today I'm joined by the founder and CEO of Lyon Rum and Windon Distilling, also president of the Maryland Distillers Guild, Jaime Windon. Jaime, how are you today?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me. Been looking forward to this.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you on here because I talk a lot, when I talk about American rum about how, there's, hundreds and hundreds of distilleries in the US that are making rum, but like the amount of distilleries that are focused 100% on rum, or at least like 90% on rum, and like only doing that and are like rum distilleries is a lot smaller than that. Like it's probably like, I don't know, 20 to 30 something or something like that, and you are one of those. So you always have like a really interesting perspective on rum. The rum you make is very distinctive, and so yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about all of that today, which we'll get into in just a moment. Real quick before we get started, I see a lot of you that are here. I'm looking over at the chat. If you see me looking to my left, a lot of you have been with us before. I see Kevin Collins. Hey, Kevin. Maggie Campbell. Hey, Maggie. How's it going? Steve Jefferson, all the way from Hawaii. So I always love how many different distillers and people who work at other American rum distilleries show up to these. It's really cool. You and I were just like chatting before this about how cool that community is and supportive and everything. So that's always awesome to see. So if you are joining us for the first time, like I said, there's a chat on the right side. Feel free to write in, let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have a question at any point during the presentation, there's a little button at the bottom that says ask a question. So you can press that and put the question in there. We'll save some time at the end to go through those. And also share the event. There's a share button at the top right. You can invite others to join us. And then last but not least, I wanted to tell everyone that also if you want to support what we're doing at Zavvy.co, we're doing lots of these live streams, lots of rum and spirits education. You can go to patreon.com/Zavvyco and become a subscriber. That helps us continue putting content out. It also allows you to like access all the recordings. We've got like hours and hours and hours of educational rum content there for you to go through. So go do that if you feel so inclined. But with all of that said, let's get down to like what we're actually here to talk about that today. So Jaime, for those who are, I think a good place to start is, for those who are less familiar with Lyon Rum, can you just kind of bring them up to speed on who y'all are, how long you've been making rum, and kind of what your style of rum is like?
Absolutely. It's actually quite amazing to me that people know about us, that I haven't met, because that was
Right.
something that for so long we were so tiny that, the first thing out of my mouth would be like, oh, you've never heard of us. We're the tiniest distillery. We make the tiniest amount of rum. And I'm still coming to terms with like this identity shift, right? Where we're not just a teeny distillery. We're definitely not in any way large, but we're growing and we're changing. So it's exciting. This is our 7th year of
Wow.
distilling spirits. Yeah. Lucky year number 7.
Right.
What
Yeah.
could possibly go wrong, right? Um,
Exactly.
and yeah, we have a tiny distillery, or I guess, averagely small craft distillery
I'll bring
in
up
St.
some images of, we've got like an outer shot. There's the tasting room, which obviously I know is closed right now, but just so people can kind of get a mental image.
Yeah, so we're if you don't know our area, we're on the eastern shore of Maryland. We're in a small town called St. Michael's, and by
Mhm.
small I mean under 1,000 residents. It's 1 square mile of town, and it sits right on the Miles River, which is a tributary of the Chesapeake Bay. So it's an incredibly idyllic space. Our distillery is in an old flour mill, so it's
Oh,
very
cool.
rustic. You can see a lot of raw floors, exposed everything. Disclaimer: my first life, I was a photographer, so I try to capture all that historic charm.
Yeah.
But the building is not without its challenges. I'm not in the distillery at this moment. I'm at my house where the Wi-Fi is better these days, and we have air conditioning. But the distillery is across the street from my house, so I can see it through my window. So it's an amazing space. It's a great place to make rum. It's a great place to meet people. And so 7 years ago, decided to just start making rum. And when I say small, I can never emphasize enough, our first batch was 30 bottles of white rum.
Wow.
And it was, distilled on 2 little 26-gallon pot stills. And there was never a massive plan to make it a business. It was
Hmm.
very much a creative project. 2 people, 2 little stills, 30 bottles of rum, like there was really nowhere to go from there but up. So over the last 7 years, we have grown into making quite a bit more rum and expanding not only our rum offerings, but kind of doing more of a deep dive. I mean, I've learned so much in the last 7 years, about
Yeah.
what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and kind of where we fit in this world of American rum. Because like you said, when we opened, the distilling community was so much smaller, and
Mm.
the American rum community was so much smaller. And so we arriving on the distilling scene, today, there's so much out there and there's so much to look to and understand. And I felt kind of like we were operating in a little bit of a vacuum. And we are also, out here in the middle of nowhere, but it's been really great to see it develop. And, now our rum is available in 9 different states with 8 different amazing distributors, and it's really wonderful. So we are rum makers here on the shore.
Yeah. Wait, and yeah, I know you and I talked the other day. Did you mention that you just got into a new state?
Yes, in the
Okay.
middle of the coronavirus pandemic, we had been talking with a new distributor that launched in Florida, and weren't
Okay.
really sure when that was going to happen. Maybe later this year. And in April, he said, "Let's do this now. No time like the present." And I was shocked. And it's the first time we've ever launched anywhere where I wasn't part of the launch, because I have
Yeah.
left Maryland. But apparently, it's going really well down there, and it's wild to see it. It's always wild to see it fly on its own, right?
Yeah.
Our distributor, obviously, we work with a lot of very small distributors, and so they love our rum and they're able to share that. But it's always crazy when someone gets introduced to our rum and I'm not there to do it. It's kind of bittersweet
Right.
because it's always been such a ham sell. I mean, for the first couple of years, every bottle we sold directly from the tasting room. So even the first jumps into wholesale and knowing that people were buying it on a shelf without seeing and meeting us is just incredible. So
Definitely. And I just put a link everyone who's attending can see underneath the stream right now that says Find Lyon Rum. And that goes to, you guys have like a page on your site with like everywhere, like stores that are carrying it. And
it's a very long page.
yeah. Yeah, but it's all the information is there. So if there's Lyon Rum near you, you can find where it is on that page. So go out and pick some up. One of the things that I always like to talk about with American rum producers, which I think is one of the fun things about exploring the category as a consumer, is you kind of have to go through this process when you start of like figuring out like, okay, I'm going to make rum, but like, what is my style of rum going to be like? There's not really one type of American rum, So I'm curious kind of like, how did you go about figuring out what style of rum you wanted to make at Lyon, and how has that evolved over the years?
Yeah. Well, my background is more in art. I was a
Mm,
writer and a photographer for many years. And so I think that when you approach things from a really creative angle, the best thing you can possibly do is something that no one else is doing, right? That feels unique and it feels special. And it also feels like you're adding something to the conversation, because there's so
mhm.
many people that will discover something, especially a spirit that's incredible. And they'll come up to you and they'll say, "I had this. Have you ever thought of doing something like that?" And my answer remains to always be, "Well, no, that's because that's what they're doing." And that's lovely. And why would I try to emulate or copy something? Now, of course, we're not reinventing the wheel, right? There are parameters for every spirit, and especially for rum. So we just wanted to offer something unique, something that wasn't out there, something that fit our taste. And also, when you're starting with 30 bottles, you can get away with making something that you really like, and then you're lucky if other people also enjoy it. So at the time, we kind of looked to what was out there, what was available, and what were other people doing, and could we pull from the best of all these different styles of rum and make something that felt truly unique to us and to our space and to, what we wanted to put in the bottle. And so for us, it's a hybrid of raw sugar cane crystals and molasses from the same sugar mill. It's pot distilled, double pot distilled in tiny stills, unfiltered, unaged, just a very kind of robust raw white spirit. And by making that with purpose, it's kind of led to everything else. So that was always where it started. Just like, how do we make the base rum really remarkable, really interesting on its own? And then, okay, with every year, how can we build on that? And so, I think we achieved it. I think if there's anything that I can constantly say about our rum is it is incredibly bold, and it's Lyon Rum when you open the bottle and you smell it and you get all of that grassy brightness that you don't always expect when you open a bottle of white rum, but it's incredibly smooth and really flavorful, and just has a very bold character, which is good.
Yeah, and I've brought this up before in previous live streams with other distillers, but I think one of the things a lot of times when rum enthusiasts hear distilleries that aren't doing 100% molasses, that are using some form of raw crystallized sugar, their first thought is that that's going to be like super neutral in flavor. I think they're picturing kind of like, white sugar from like a bag of Domino sugar or something like that. But what I've learned over the years is that there's a lot of different types of, raw cane sugar out there, and you can use forms of it that really do pick up some of those, like, as you described, like grassier flavors. I think people get into dangerous waters when they like word juice around, like they'll say like evaporated cane juice, and like it's not the same as using fresh cane juice, but you like some of those sugar cane qualities really like when I open a bottle of Lyon Rum, and I was going to show this later, but this is one of the flavored rums that you do, but like you use real fruit, it's blackberries, but like when you open this, like it's a lot of times you open flavored rum and like you don't even get anything that smells like rum. Like you get rum with this, and you get that like grassiness that I think it surprises a lot of people. So like that's just one thing I always like to point out when distillers are on here who do fermentations like that. Is it was kind of a learning process for me to realize like, oh, okay, that doesn't always mean like this rum is just going to have no flavor.
Exactly. Well, and quite to the contrary. And one of the reasons that we chose the sugar that we use in a fermentation is because we believe that's what carries through with that really grassy, robust flavor, right? And aroma, rather, because when we get the sugar, it's damp. It's like ocean sand, right? It's beach sandy. And so it's got some of that cane juice in it because it's that first press of sugar. So it's not refined. And that was the thought, in our head, was if we could bring in the best of both, if we could get a little bit of raw cane notes in there along with molasses, and it would balance, it might be really unique and it might be really delicious. And so it is. And if we were to use refined sugar, it would be very different, and wouldn't exactly serve the purpose that the raw sugar does.
Right. Well, I'm interested in kind of what are the biggest differences in when you work with a fermentation that has that raw cane sugar in it versus if you were doing like a 100% molasses fermentation. Do you have to treat it differently than you would otherwise?
I guess it depends. It depends on how you do your fermentations, right? Ours are very straightforward. We don't control the temperature of our fermentations. We don't draw them out. We kind of we've always taken a very relaxed approach to letting nature take its course. Not wild fermentations by any means, but, there can be a nutrient issue that needs balanced, depending on if you were using all refined sugar, which we actually played around with during the coronavirus because we were making hand sanitizer at one point. So we were trying to just make very, very fast fermentations. And so we did a lot of experimenting over the last couple of months of figuring out what we could do quickly. But for the most part, I think that it just depends on what flavors you're trying to bring out, right? And whether you're using 100% molasses fermentation, which we have tried. It seems like every new distiller that I bring in has a moment in his or her career where they want to try something. Okay, I just want to do an all molasses fermentation. And so
Yeah.
during that course of experimentation, you get to see, but maybe never on the large scale that we're doing, because we kind of, 7 years ago, we just threw a recipe out there. We really liked it, and we've done minor tweaks to it over the years. But I'm not one of those, let's keep reinventing. Like, once it works, I love it. Let's run with it. Let's tweak it, make it a little bit better, but not going back, to the drawing board too often. Especially once you have something that really does work. I don't want to tweak it too much.
Yeah. Well, I remember, like, I think the first time you and I talked, we exchanged a few emails, and you mentioned to me, this was over a year ago, you mentioned to me that I think you were really excited at the time because you guys had just kind of announced that you were going to focus 100% on just rum, because not everyone here probably knows this, but y'all made rye whiskey, among I think a few other things back in the day, but your rye whiskey was like, it was pretty known. Like, I pulled up an article from Esquire that like named it one of the best, like the best whiskey in the state of Maryland at the time. This was a few years ago. And so when you told me, like, yeah, people really like our rye whiskey, but like, we're just going to stop making it because I really want to focus 100% on rum, I was like, okay, like I have to learn more about this and talk to Jaime, because that's like a serious decision. So if someone's doing that, they're really all in on rum. I'm curious to know, like, over a year removed from making that switch, what have been kind of the differences that decision has made for you now?
I would say that the way I can talk about our distillery and our spirits is just more focused, right? So there's this tendency to want to, every distillery is different, and no way is right or wrong, whether you're going to just dig in. Some people only make one spirit, period, and one expression, and that's what they do, and they do it beautifully. And some people, work with anything and have fun. Oh, my computer went away. Sorry.
No worries.
Technological issues. So for us, it was in the beginning, rum was the first thing we made. But very shortly after, we started mashing rye whiskey, which is one thing that Maryland is known for. So there is a bit of that desire to, do what's historically appropriate and interesting. And when we started, we were really finding our way, and we did the smallest batches of whiskey, and it was wonderful. And people really liked it, and it was very rare because we didn't make it very often. But we were really always committed to rum and to refining that as we went. So what I found the most challenging was not even the functionality of, okay, time to switch everything over, and for a couple of weeks, we're going to mash and distill, whiskey versus rum. And, you have logistical issues with space, and we have small stills. And so there was that concern, but it was more in the way we talk about it, because, 90% of what I do is dealing with people and people who are drinking our spirits. And so when you tell someone who's never met you, never tried your spirits, that you make rum and you go through it, and especially if they say something like, I'm a whiskey drinker, I might have a couple of rums that I want to suggest to them. But then when they hear that every December we have a small release of whiskey, the natural progression just always was, oh, so you're just making rum until you have your whiskey ready, which I think is kind of a common thing in some distilleries, that they'll do certain spirits when they launch their company, and then they'll transition over time. And I always had to correct them and say, no, like, rum is what we do, and we're always going to do it. And, the whiskey comes and goes. And it started to seem very incongruous, right? Why are we shifting gears to make this one thing that was very good when we could really dig into rum? And, even 7 years in, there's so much to learn, and there's so much to keep refining. And if you want to be an expert in anything, I think you have to devote your whole self to it. So for me, as this evolved from that little creative spirits project where we made a little bit of rum, even less whiskey, to starting to, as the batches kept going, as the expressions kept building, as we added people to our team, and we had a big growth as a company about 4 years ago, where our staff, we suddenly had the staff, and I couldn't get enough people in the doors to work. It was a couple of distillers, and everyone was learning, and everyone was learning rum, and they were learning how to make rum, and they were learning how to infuse rum, and they were learning how to talk about rum, and the whiskey just felt like a distraction. And so there's nothing wrong with it. It wasn't, people always want to say, oh, it was just too difficult to make whiskey.
It was too hard for you.
It's just too, no, it was a distraction from the thing that I wanted to focus on. And so it wasn't a hard decision. We just emptied barrels we'd empty little, sometimes it'd be like 3 to 5 small barrels of whiskey, for bottling. And one year I said, you know what, we were busy. We were making rum. And I said, we're just not going to mash any whiskey this week, not next month. And we just didn't do it. And so if you stop filling your barrels, it kind of, naturally became the point where I just didn't want to switch gears. And we needed to make more rum. So yeah, when we bottled our very last batch, we knew it was an end of an era, but customers kept asking, oh, well, maybe you'll do another batch. And I explained to them, well, it would be years if I made that decision tomorrow to make a batch, and you're not going to see it for a long time. So
right.
I've held fast, and it's been years now since we have mashed or distilled whiskey in our space. And so it feels good. It feels good to be a rum distillery. There are still a couple of bottles of rye whiskey in the back in unmarked boxes. And, they make their way to farmers markets and are available online right now. But yeah, we are 100% rum and really excited about it. It feels really good. We have a new slogan for a long time. We were the drink more rum people,
Okay.
And now it's all you need is rum.
Oh, I wasn't aware of the switch. And I actually, I have this little, I don't know if you can see it, but like on this bookshelf behind me, there's a little Bob Dylan cutout, and he's holding a guitar, and I have one of your drink more rum pins that I slid over the guitar.
Nice.
Almost like he's wearing a little Lion drink more rum pin.
Well, we still totally believe and subscribe to that, because drinking more rum, you're going to enjoy our rum. You're going to find other beautiful rums. So we think that's just kind of a mantra. But yeah, all you need is rum kind of sums it up for us now.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I want to talk about the rum that you're making. Let me just pull up these slides. Sorry, I've got 2 screens. I'm trying to figure out where everything is. Yeah. Okay. So
I want tech savvy, whether we wanted to or not during this time.
What's that?
That everyone's had to get a little more tech savvy, whether they wanted to or not.
I know. Yeah. Right. It's half my day is working out, video conferencing issues. So I know we've touched on a few of the different types of rum you make, but I kind of wanted to start it out by talking about your white rum, dark, and Sailor's Reserve. And I think there's overproof versions of the white and the Sailor's Reserve, if I remember correctly. But can you kind of just walk us through the production process for these? And I know you touched on a little bit of that earlier, but just start to finish, how are these getting made?
Okay, so like I said, and like I always try to celebrate our white rum, because it is the base of everything we do.
Yes.
So our white rum is bottled at 90 proof. It's got a ton of character and flavor. It is very much a raw, rum. That's how I describe it, because it hasn't been aged. It hasn't been filtered. It's double pot distilled on these little tiny stills, proofed with water, and that's it. So it's great for bright, grassy, funky drinks, like classic daiquiris and the lovely mojito. It's just a really full body rum.
Mm-hmm.
The dark rum is our signature, right? Hands down. When people say they've had our rum and they like it, I know that they're talking about the dark rum, because the dark rum is unlike any other. It is not an aged rum. It is not a spiced rum. It is not too sweet of a rum. It is just delightful. What we do is we take that sugar cane and we cook it by hand into a slightly smoky caramel, and then we fold a little bit of it into the white rum, and then we let it rest in stainless steel tanks. And the dark rum has this abundant, kind of rich, butterscotchy, slightly smoky aroma, but you still get all that youthful grassiness that's present in the white rum, and then it's just incredibly smooth. It's also 90 proof, so it's bold, right? It's sippable, it's rich, it's sweet, but it's not sugary sweet. There's a lot of just inherent character that comes through, and you get more molassesy kind of character that people are familiar with. So the common question when people taste the white and the dark side by side is they say, "Oh, this one's made with molasses," and I have to explain that no, they're the same rum, but one has something added to it, which is changing the flavor profile and brings it out. But it's lovely because, some people really enjoy a spiced rum and some people don't. myself, I'm not really a spiced rum fan. So this kind of hits the palate in the way that rich dark rum will, but in a totally different way, right? And it has those honeyed, caramelly notes, but not from spending years and years in a barrel. Instead, from actually having that homemade caramel finished into it. And that's always also a kind of a sticky subject in distilling. Is, oh, are you adding anything to rums, and are you back sweetening and da 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 da?
Right.
It's funny because when I first kind of discovered that was a conversation and like a scandal, if you will, I said, oh, okay, there you go. But we've never said it wasn't, right? Like, so for us, that's
Right.
how we make our rum. So it's distinctly, it is, and it's made, the reason we kind of came upon that way, because there are a lot of rums have sweetness or coloring, or, people often will say, oh, so you just add caramel coloring to it. I'm like, no. Like, it's very
Right.
important that it goes into that rum, handmade and is natural, and the flavor is so much more, authentic and delicious.